Now I'd like to talk a little bit about Jewish burial practices related to the first century AD and slightly before. And as we think of Jesus upon the cross, and we see that the high priest and the chief priest did not want the bodies to hang of the two thieves and Jesus to hang up on the cross on the feast day, on the coming up on the Sabbath day, because it was a holy day. And so they break the legs of the two thieves, the malefactors, and Jesus was already dead. And so we see that Joseph of Arimathea comes and takes that body, and then he wraps it in linen with spices, which was typical of the embalming process of the Jews of the day. In the Old Testament, we see that Abraham, Jacob, and the patriarchs would bury their loved ones in caves and put their bones in the caves. In the first century, if you were a commoner, and for instance, the two malefactors that were taken down from the crosses most likely were buried in just common graves. And basically, it was been something like a V trench, in a shallow V trench outside the city walls. The body would have been laid in, and then rocks would have been covered over that, and it would have been left. There have been few of these ever found, mainly because of all of the wars and constructions that have passed through the centuries. But what has remained are the rock-hewn tombs, and these, as far as the Jews are concerned, were maybe 150 to 200 year window in which the more wealthy Jews would take and have the rock hewn out and then have a stone that they could roll over the opening. And these would be family tombs. And if you look inside here, and there you can see a bench that would have been built into that. And then also, this does not have it, this model, but along the walls there would have been an area grouping for shelves that you could have put in what is called an ossuary. An ossuary literally means bone box. And the way the Jews did it is when the body was wrapped in the linen and the spices and laid into the tomb, they would wait a year and roll the door over, and then after a year, come and open it up, and then the flesh would have been rotted away by then, and then they would take the bones and put them in an ossuary. And so you find many ossuaries that are dated back to around the first century. And after the fall of Jerusalem, that was never done after that point. So the prophecy that Jesus would be buried among the rich came true. And although Jesus was a commoner, and so that was a very specific prophecy to that effect. This ossuary, and it came off a little bit more darker than what the original looks like, and it's also bigger. So this is a small scale version of what the ossuary would have looked like. This particular one was found, and it is of Caiaphas, the chief priest, high priest, when Jesus was crucified. And that has been found. There is a marking here, and typically on the ossuaries, on the marking, there are very crude scratches on the ossuary, and to list the name there. And over and over, they find these crude markings on these beautiful ossuaries. And it is nearly all pure white, that ossuary that was discovered. So Jesus was never put into an ossuary, of course, because he rose on the third day. But it would have been very uncommon, almost, unheard of, to have placed a non-family member in your hewn tomb. And so that is another unusual feature that we see at the crucifixion of Christ. And there is just that small opening of window where you have this that Jesus was buried in, and then he was hung upon the cross next to two thieves. And so it's just amazing how the prophecies from the Old Testament all come to a point, pointing to the birth of Christ, to the life of Christ, to the crucifixion of Christ, to the burial of Christ, to the resurrection of Christ, and the establishment of the church in Acts chapter 2. So great artifacts to know about and to help your Bible study. Thank you.